Talking F1 with Steve, Neil, and the Gov. Hello again, my friends, and you are my friends, and welcome to your Monday night, your regular weekly Monday night Formula One pit stop. It is 7:20. I probably should start scheduling these shows for 7:20 because we say 7:15 and then we try and backstage sort of, well, how can I put this, Steve? Just kill time until Neil might arrive. But we're starting today without Neil being in the VIP area, without him being backstage. So whether he appears or not, we do not know. But we are live across the world, and it is Formula One night. You can get involved. How can you get involved? I hear you say at home. Well, you can do what EJ Norris has just done and leave a comment in our live chat. Anything you want to say about Formula One is absolutely welcome, whether we're talking about it or not. Because if we're not, and you want to talk about it, then by darn, we will talk about it. Alternatively, if you are feeling brave, if you are feeling overcome with an opinion on Formula One and you want to have it out and you want to share it to the world and see what the reaction is, you can come on the show. Just ask for a link. Just say link in the chat and I will provide one for you to come on. And you can come on without a webcam, just so you know. So, you know, if you haven't got one or whatever reason, you can come on without one. EJ Norris, as I said earlier, posting the live chat. Hello, guys. What a race weekend. Enjoyed watching Hamilton second and Russell third. More of the same, please. Absolutely. I'm sure Hamilton will be mentioned because on the grid tonight is the pressure getting to Charles. More podium luck for Mercedes. So, yeah, Hamilton and Russell will be discussed. Will the French Grand Prix return for 2023? And another strategy blunder for Ferrari. What is going on with Ferrari? We ask the lads, we find out, and then, of course, anything else as it comes up or as you tell us. But before I bring in our contributors, I just want to remind you, you can find us on all podcast platforms. Search Talking Formula One Fan Show Live, and you should find us. Now, for those that are listening on our audio devices, and there are many of you, you will not see the benefit of this next bit, but for those that are watching us live or on catch up, I saw this on Formula One Reddit, and you know how I like to share these on the show, and it made me smile. 10 years apart, I believe. 13 years apart. As you can see, Lewis Hamilton in the top, Max Verstappen looking on with admiration, and then the picture below is Max Verstappen. You can't hear me. Yeah, there's no sound with it. Just me talking. But yeah, Max Verstappen with Lewis Hamilton putting the champagne over him. That's a picture that struck me over the weekend. Let's go ahead. George, is it George? I thought that was Max. You're right. That is George. That is George Russell. I thought that was Max. I don't know why I thought that was Max. Probably because Max won. So I'm thinking, why would George have champagne tipped over him? Steve, clear up. The aficionado. Stephen Thompson.
No, I think Bottas he'll be the one to really hold out.
Why is it George Russell and not Max Verstappen? Why is he putting George? He finished third.
It's their first double podium. It's their first double podium. And Hamilton
That's not a reason for the champagne.
They've lucked into another double podium. Or lucked into another podium.
It's not a reason for champagne, though. I mean, come on, you're catching the new guys out.
It's a way to support it. It's a way to, I don't mind it so much. These two get on well. They've got a good relationship. You celebrate with your teammate. It's your first double podium as a team.
I don't like that.
First double podium for a while.
Because it catches me out. The new fan, it catches me out. I just assume champagne over the winner is generally how it goes.
And Hamilton still doesn't really like Max, does he?
Well, I thought that was, that's why it struck me. I thought it was the building of bridges. I thought it was the coming together of drivers and, putting past issues to one side, Stephen.
I've no doubt that will happen because at one point, Lewis and Fernando Alonso didn't talk after their tumultuous season together in 2007. They're now good friends. Seb and Lewis had that massive rivalry a few years ago. They're good friends now. They'll be fine. Give it time. Old wounds will heal, that sort of thing. But I think it's still quite fresh for Lewis. But he was just pouring champagne over his teammate. Like you say, it's their first double podium as a team. Mercedes are getting closer. They're not quite there yet, but they're getting there.
Fair enough. All right. Well, we were in France, obviously, for the race this year. I like France. Also, Max hates Hamilton's an EJ. Yeah. I mean, I thought it was the coming together of, putting this one side. Never mind. Moving on. French Grand Prix. I like to race it on Formula One on the Xbox. I think it's one of the best tracks for me and my skill level. How was the race this weekend for you, Mr. Thompson, as an aficionado of the F1 world?
Depressing.
Why? Tell the world at home why.
As much as I love Max Verstappen, I love Charles Leclair more. And I want nothing more than to see Charles win this championship. And, he binned it. It was a mistake. He owned up. At first I thought it was a mechanical issue because he's on the radio saying something about his throttle.
Mm-hmm.
But he said, it was a mistake. And he said that if I don't win the championship by this many points, then I know they're the points I dropped in Imola and today. It was a good race. There were some good battles.
There were some really good incidents. Yeah.
I mean, taking off my Charles Leclerc glasses, it was a good race. It wasn't like an edge of your seat sort of thing like we saw last year at the same track. But he had Perez and Russell had a great fight. They did. That was fantastic. Actually. Carlos Sainz, man on a mission, absolutely charging from the back of the grid to finish fifth. He had a hell of a drive. The Ferrari held together as well. There was some, Lewis was just sort of quietly getting along, really doing his own thing, doing what Lewis does, just turning up and doing well.
So would you want to see the French Grand Prix return for 2023?
I would, because I think, I'm an F1 traditionalist, I think there's certain countries that should have Grand Prix. Silverstone, obviously the UK being one, this is where Formula One started. Yeah, there were Grand Prix in France way before the days of Formula One. So I always think the French Grand Prix is a special thing. Mm-hmm. France has got a very good relationship with motorsport. Yeah, Germany, I think, should be on the calendar as well for the same reason as France. But it hasn't been for the past few years, which is a shame. I'd love to see it back next year. I'm not 100% won over on the circuit, though. There are other tracks. Magny-Cours.
We sense that. We picked that up.
Yeah, Magny-Cours had some good races. But from what I understand, Magny-Cours is not actually suitable for Formula One anymore. It needs sort of updating and revising. Oh, really? A bit like Imola did and a bit like the Red Bull Ring did.
What makes it? What makes it? Is it the lack of? Obviously, I've never seen this.
Facilities are a big part of it. It was in Formula One. I think the last Grand Prix there was back in 2008, which only seems like yesterday, but it's really not. Facilities are a big part of it. The pit lane and all the garages and that side of it. Whether the track itself is safe enough, I don't know if it currently holds other formula or other categories. Maybe. I always liked Magny-Cours personally because I used to, like yourself, I always used to do really well at Magny-Cours on the F1 game. I always used to love it.
I love it.
F1 2006, if I had to do a test for a team at Magny-Cours, I was acing that. I knew that. But
that and Bahrain.
Yeah. Oh, Bahrain's
easy. Easy.
I think the French Grand Prix, I don't mind where it is. It should be on the calendar.
It's normally 100%. In France, to be fair.
It's got to be in France. That does help the French Grand Prix.
That's a good one.
I'll narrow it down because you're going to be smart ass. I don't mind what venue in France the French Grand Prix will be at. I don't mind as long as there is a French Grand Prix because it's part of that fabric and that DNA.
Agreed.
Just get rid of the American street tracks and just racing. Just have more old school races. Pedigree.
Okay, boomer. Traditionalist Stephen Thompson.
Thank you. I'm not a boomer. I'm a traditionalist.
Should have been called. Forget the aficionado. We should have called you the traditionalist because you're Mr. Traditional. Yeah. And I love it. And I respect you for it. I'm 100%. And I was just trying to redeem myself there with that little smart ass comment from earlier's gaff.
But don't get me wrong. I love obviously the future of Formula One and the direction it's taking. The sustainability side of it is incredibly clever. The cars are incredibly clever now. But I hark back for those days with the screaming V10s and Magny-Cours and Istanbul and the Hockenheim ring.
Just need some of that cello music, Get
Juan Pablo Montoya back. Get Felipe Massa.
There you go. Right, talking of cars, following a hefty upgrade package and a P8 finish for Alex Albon in free practices 1 and 3. Williams, come on, you guys were dreaming. And then, as usual,
The life of a Williams fan
it's depressing.
is a tumultuous one, you know. FP1 and FP2 are okay. They've got the upgrades on both cars now, which is fantastic. They've got the sort of the facilities, the finances, whatever it may be, to do that. But yeah, FP3 was looking great because Albon was 8th, Latifi was in the top 15, and they looked like they had genuine pace. They could trouble Q2, potentially Q3 for Albon, and then there was nothing in the race, unfortunately. Latifi, he ended up starting last, bar 2 cars anyway, just going full Latifi. Albon was very lucky to be in Q2. He was knocked out. Mick had a lap time deleted, so that put him back up. Yep. And then they just made no progress during the race. You know, they were saying it was a sort of one of those sort of races where you kept your nose clean, do your job. I'm getting concerned. You know, it all looked okay after Australia. It looked like they could be making progress, but it's been
particularly after that upgrade package. Talk about progress followed by disaster. Mick Schumacher, obviously, he's been making consistent progress, winning points, and then the man who can't escape a collision at the moment, Zhao, comes in, and it just goes a little bit wrong for Mick Schumacher.
Yeah, I felt bad for Mick. The Haas just didn't really seem to have that pace this weekend.
I thought it was very for Zhao. He can't catch a break, literally.
No, he almost made it to the end of the race, and it was another failure for Alfa Romeo. That car it's got a Ferrari power unit in the back, and those cars have been fragile this year. The poor guy, you know, it's not. You look back at someone's debut season and see the amount of retirements, and you think, he's a rookie, he's going to make mistakes. He's not really making mistakes. That's the thing, you know. He's got, obviously, he was the innocent victim in the Silverstone incident. And he's had mechanical issue after mechanical issue, and the poor guy, I feel so bad for him. Yeah, I really do, because he's doing everything right. He is comparable to Bottas, which isn't an easy thing, because Bottas on a Saturday is very, very good. Regarding Mick, obviously 2 points finishes in a row. The Haas was just off the pace this weekend. Didn't really seem to have it. Magnussen started dead last due to engine penalties, and ended up retiring after a scuffle with Latifi, which ended up in Latifi's retirement as well. And Mick just never seemed to trouble that top 10, which is a shame. I've no doubt that he's going to bounce back. And I think now he's got those points, that pressure is lifted. But this is what I am enjoying about this season so far. The midfield is so up and down. You know, one weekend Haas are going to be on it. The next weekend they're going to be off it, and some other team will be up there. And it is, unless you're a Williams fan, they're always going to be down there. You know, that it is a really enjoyable season overall. If you take out the Charles Leclerc heartbreak.
Well, yeah, I was just messaging Neil to see if we are going to be having an appearance, Mr. Positivity, or not. Because I wanted to talk about, his team, McLaren. Were you surprised that the battle with Alpine and the eventual outcome of that battle?
I can't remember where people finished. I think they both got double points, didn't they?
It did, yeah. I believe so.
Alpine have leapfrogged McLaren now up into 4th. Alpine are doing very, very well. McLaren have been a bit hit and miss. Even as a Ricciardo fan, he has hurt the team by some lackluster performances. But he was doing all right this weekend. He seemed to have turned a corner, metaphorically speaking. Norris was just typically Lando Norris, just popped it up in 5th in qualifying. Where the hell did that come from? Sandwiched by Mercedes.
Good old Lando.
Fernando Alonso, being typically Fernando, I want the drivers close to me so they can kill their tyres, was his radio message. And that is just pure Fernando. The guy has not lost it. 40 years old. And it's like you're watching him in the early noughties.
It is masterful watching him, isn't it?
It is. If someone said they don't like Fernando, they do. They like Fernando.
Oh, they're just not being honest with themselves.
Yeah, it's impossible not to like it. I was a bit hit and miss with Fernando back in the day, but I think he's brilliant. He's like a little bulldog, and he's just not lost it. So the Alpine McLaren battle is absolutely fantastic, and probably one of the battle apart from the Ferrari Red Bull thing, which is looking increasingly Red Bull. This is probably the battle of the season for me because it ebbs and flows again, week in, week out, and it's just brilliant. It really is.
Yeah. So I'm just looking. Neil may be on the way, ladies and gentlemen. He may well be on the way. EJ Norris, do you think the new rules for the floor to come in from Belgium will make any difference?
Possibly. It's a tricky circuit. You've got a couple of very long straights, especially the Camel Straight after Eau Rouge Radion, that sort of sequence. They seem to be eradicating a lot of the porpoising issues. Mercedes obviously started the season with massive problems with that, and they seem to have all but gone. Mind you, it was quite a smooth surface in Port Ricard. It could be different next time out at Hungary, which is quite an older circuit. It's tricky to say, really, because again, it ebbs and flows so much this season. It could help a team. It could really hurt another team. A few years ago, there were changes to the tyres. I think we're going to talking about sort of maybe 8, 9, 10 years ago, when Red Bull were the dominant, sort of the Red Bull era, and they were struggling. There were rules, and it was all looking rosy for Ferrari, and then it changed and it swung back in Red Bull's favour, and we could see the same again with the floor thing. It's tricky to say.
Can you break that down a little bit for us newbies? Because for me, that just sounds like, well, it doesn't really make sense. The rules for the floor. The floor is the floor. But I'm guessing you don't actually mean the floor.
No, there's basically, someone's going to have to fill me in here because I'm not 100% on it. I will be certainly honest with you. Might have to have a look at that.
I will look it up. I will look it up while you answer Metal Jace with, I'd love to see Alonso on a car capable of winning. Would make some great battles with Max.
It would, no doubt about it. If Alonso was in a car like the Mercedes, like the Red Bull, the Ferrari, he'd be winning races, regardless of his age. He's proven he's he's got way more than the capability needed to fight with those guys at the front. There's a few drivers that are sort of in a tier above the rest, and you put people like Max in it, like Charles in it, Lewis, Fernando.
Yeah.
They're in that sort of, that extra tier. Fernando, the fact that he's been in Formula 1 20 years, well, a couple of years out, and he's only got 2 world championships is incredible, because he could have easily had 5 if it had made the right decisions. But that's where he went wrong. So, according to Autosport.com, the FIA had originally intended to introduce an aerodynamic oscillation metric, AOM, which teams could not exceed for the next race at Paul Ricard. Part of its plan was intended to reduce car bouncing and therefore improve driver safety. So it's about the porpoising and flexi floor. It's been delayed here. This was written July 8th. So make of that what you will. That would suggest nothing's changed, right? From the sound of it.
Yeah, being postponed. So I don't know if EJ's got a more up-to-date article or if he's not got up-to-date information. EJ, come back to us and let us know. You mentioned him a couple of times. Charles Leclerc, is the pressure getting to? I'm going to ask you now, is the pressure getting to Charles? Yes.
I think so. I love the guy. I mean, apart from George, he's my boy on the grid,
Yeah.
And he's suddenly been given a car that can fight for a championship. Max was, when he started at Red Bull, Max was straight away winning races, but he was always never going to win a championship because he always had that sort of time with Mercedes. And he then could build up. But Charles, he's had 3 years, 19, 20, 21. He had 3 years at Ferrari with a car that couldn't, he won a couple of races in 2019, and then 2020 was awful. 2021, only a little better, really.
Yeah.
And suddenly, after 2 really poor years, he's found himself suddenly brand new car, the ability to fight for wins regularly. He got a couple, like I say, a few years back, but now regularly fight for wins and regularly challenge for a championship. And that's a lot on your plate, And of all people, you're fighting it with Max Verstappen, probably the hottest property in Formula 1 right now, one of the best drivers on the grid, a guy who's hungry for a second championship, and a guy who is at the very top of his game. Max is absolutely phenomenal. And I think that pressure is getting to Charles. And also he knows the amount of points he's lost already. He can't afford to lose much more. He's now 64 points behind Max. If Max fails to finish the next 2 races and Charles wins, he will still be 14 points behind.
It's over.
If he gets fastest lap in both.
It's over.
F1 can change very, very quickly. It did last year between Lewis and Max, but I think the pressure is starting to get to him a bit. I mean, it was great for him to own up and say, yeah, look, I made a mistake and I can't keep doing it. No, you can't, because we're over halfway through the season. And Max isn't the kind of guy who really makes mistakes. The only thing that's going to hold Red Bull back is if they start having their reliability issues again.
I think you've answered your own question there, Steve, in the sense of Max doesn't make many mistakes. It's going to take almost a catalogue of mistakes for it now. It can happen, of course. Anything can happen. Never say never. But if I was a betting man, and I'm not, but if I was, I think I'd be putting money onto it, and
as much as
you wouldn't get great odds now. Wouldn't get great odds now, but it's a certain. I would say it's almost a certain bet.
I really want to see Max push for a record for like Michael and Lewis's records, because I love seeing records pushed and broken. And if anyone's going to break Lewis's records, Michael Schumacher's records, it's going to be Max. But I really want to see Charles win his first championship. And Max is driving complete. I think Max is different to last year. He's a lot calmer. He's a lot more collected. He's a lot more, all right, I need to finish second. Really, it's damage limitation, so I'll finish second and I won't go for that gap for first, which is what you need to do. It's very Alain Prost. Ayrton Senna would always go for a gap. Alain Prost would, if he needed to finish fifth to clinch a championship, he'd settle for fifth. He wouldn't try and get a podium,
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I think Max is driving much more like that this year. Sort of, all right, like in Austria, I've not got the pace to challenge the cars ahead of me, like the Ferraris. I'll wait. And that's exactly what he's doing right. And it's going to be near impossible for Charles to get him.
Well, but then, Ferrari are not helping themselves, though, are they? That's the issue with Ferrari. They're really not helping themselves in terms of strategy. And what is the issue here, Steve? Because I've never seen a team shoot itself in the foot more times this year than any year than Ferrari.
Have you seen that? There's that meme online. There was a cartoon of a guy riding a bicycle and he puts a stick through his own front wheel.
Yes,
and then just flips and falls off.
Yeah,
that's Ferrari. That's really
Ferrari,
is.
Yeah.
Because this time, at first I thought Charles Leclerc's incident was a throttle. It obviously wasn't. It was his own issue. But then they could have got a podium with Sainz, because he was on another level yesterday with pace. He was on a different strategy to the guys around him.
Yeah.
He was making mincemeat of the guys around him. And they're saying, right, box. And he's going, no, not now, because he's fighting with Sergio Perez and he's all over Perez. Great battle as well. That's what I like to see from Carlos Sainz. You just go for it. That sort of ruthlessness we've not really seen. And he's going, no, not now. And Ferrari going, okay, box. And he had to come in for a pit stop, and then he finished fifth, and he could have got a podium. Okay, you've lost your number one driver. You've lost the guy who's fighting a championship for you. Maximize your points with against Red Bull with Carlos, and they just come in. And it's not the first blunder. I'm obviously thinking back to Monaco as well, when they did the same thing with Charles and cost him what was an almost certain victory.
They are just the worst at the moment for that.
I don't know if it's because, I don't know. I was speaking to, we always have my friend around watching the races with us, and we were saying yesterday, I think there's this romance with Ferrari that, look, we're an Italian team and we've got an entire team of Italians. We're run by Italians. They've got like Mattia Binotto in charge and that sort of thing. I don't know if that may be hurting them a little bit, because they were at their most successful when they had Michael Schumacher for a start, but they had Ross Brawn and Jean Todt. Jean Todt's a Frenchman. Ross Brawn is British.
Yep.
They were at their best when those two were at the helm. And I don't know if this is this thing with Ferrari, like they're trying to keep this old sort of romantic image. Whether they were, I think they should maybe get someone outside in. Ruthless.
Do you think it's not imperative, but do you think it's just a matter of when in the summer they make those necessary changes? Because he's lost 75 points from winning positions.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. A couple of those weren't his fault. He had a problem in Azerbaijan, leading the race. Problem in Spain, leading the race. Canada,
75
not Canada, sorry.
Ridiculous.
Imola was his own mistake, not Canada, sorry. And yesterday was his own mistake as well. But 75 points. He could have won 6 races this year, maybe.
Yeah.
He could be comfortably leading that championship he was a few races in. I don't know. They need to look at their strategist. I've got no problem with Mattia Binotto. I think he's doing okay. It's the strategist that need looking at. And again, when they have people like Jean Todt, they need that ruthlessness,
Yeah.
Jean Todt telling Rubens Barrichello to get out of the way for Michael, and it's a no questions asked thing. Move out of the way for Michael.
Yeah, absolutely.
It may upset him, but you've got to do what's got to be done.
So we put the Ferrari to bed. And this time, we did it. They didn't do it for us. I want to talk about Hamilton for a minute. Over 300 races now. I think I read this during the week, and I'm trying to remember it all. I don't think anyone's ever won a race over 300. So once they get 300, they've never won a race. Do you think Hamilton will be the first to buck that trend?
It's a bad omen, isn't it? Look at the people who've done it. Jenson Button's done it. Michael Schumacher, Kimi, Rubens Barrichello.
Yep. Good list, great list. That's normally a list you want to be a part of.
Solid list to be on, isn't it? When you got someone like Michaels, who's one of the greatest of all time. Fernando, again, one of the greatest. And then even people like Felipe, who never won like Rubens, who never won a championship, but he was solid. I think Lewis will be the one to buck that trend. I'm still confident he'll win a race this year.
What, this year?
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, because he is, even though he's not had the car, I think he's still driving on a very, very good level. And it's going to take a bit of time for that car to be on the same level as the Mercedes, the Red Bull, and the Ferrari. But Mercedes are doing everything they can do. They can't win races right now, but they're still picking up podiums. That's 4 in a row for Hamilton now. 3 thirds and a second. George has got 4 this year. Because they're reliable for a start. The drivers are fantastic, and they are there when people around them are imploding. Charles is having his own little accidents. Ferrari are determined to sabotage their own championship. The Red Bull can be fragile, and Mercedes are just there. And even if it's not one of the sort of dominant Hamilton victories we've seen in the past, even if he is running in third and then the 2 in front of him have an issue, he'll get a win. I'm 100% certain he'll win again this year, and he'll keep going into next year, I reckon.
Yeah. Well, I hope so. The sport is much richer for him. Hamilton will win again, 100%, says EJ.
Yeah.
Are we in Hungary next?
We are this week as well. So I've not got any time at all to get over my Charles Leclerc pain.
You have no. Do you want to see what Williams' Hungary Grand Prix poster looks like? I've just found it. Here we go. Let's have a look at it. It's actually quite a nice one, to be fair. There it is.
Look at that.
That's quite nice. That's quite nice. I mean, you won't actually finish the race probably, but
they will. They'll finish. Just way down the order.
They'll finish, but no one will ever know they're finished because by the time they do, the race is over and no one's going home for a cup of tea. But they will finish.
This is Williams are doing the right thing here. Obviously, it's not really the Williams that we know anymore. It's not the family team, but hiring someone like Jost Capito, I think, is the right move because again, he's this sort of outsider who can be ruthless and make the decisions that need to be made, and that's okay. You're going to hurt some people along the way, but it's going to be beneficial in the long run, and I think that's the route Ferrari need to go down. They need to recapture those glory days. F1 is so much better for having Ferrari at the front. Do what needs to be done. They're not the old ruthless Ferrari of old, apart from when they're sabotaging their own drivers. So
you think Ferrari going to take 1 and 2 next week?
No. This is the thing. I've got so little confidence.
You're leaving them in there. Come on, Steve. Get behind them. Come on, don't desert them.
I care more for Williams. Obviously, I'm a Williams fan at heart, but I want to see Ferrari win. But the trouble is, when Charles Leclerc gets pole, I celebrate because he's got 16 poles, 5 wins. And it's either a mixture of his own errors or team or mechanical.
It's now good. It's now good.
It's not. I think Verstappen has won more races from Leclerc poles than Leclerc has. That's a crazy statistic, and I find it really difficult. I don't know if there are any sort of diehard Ferrari fans watching or listening back to this, but you got to tell me how you do it because it is a stressful. I thought being a Williams fan was stressful. At least when I finished 10th, I'm happy about it.
Happy related. Let's not pretend.
I am. I'm over the, when Albon finished 10th in Australia, I was, that's the happiest I've been for a while. And that's about as good as my season has been.
I would have thought any diehard Ferrari fans are still upset come Monday. They don't want to talk about anything but nothing about to do with Formula One. Anything but Formula One, particularly on a Monday. But we're in Hungary, so give me a top three as we round up our half an hour together this Monday evening.
Top three, I think I'm going to go for broke. I'm going to say a Leclair win, please. I'm going to say Perez second.
And
Verstappen third. Even though I know full well in my heart of heart it's going to be a Verstappen win.
In your heart of hearts, is it a Verstappen win off a Leclair podium? A Leclair pole.
No. If Verstappen wins, I don't think Leclerc's going to be on pole. It's a tricky circuit to pass on as well. The only way you can do it is if you go bowling like Bottas did.
So what you're saying is whoever gets pole in the quali is going to probably win the race.
You've got a better chance because it is a tricky circuit to overtake on. It's quite narrow and twisty. Is it Monaco? Someone said, I thought one of the circuits is like Monaco without the walls. I can't remember if that was Hungary or elsewhere, but I can see why.
Certainly. All right, well, we're done. We're back next week at 7:15/20. Where hopefully
I hope that comment, by the way, from EJ Norris, I hope that's true this year, though.
It won't be this year, but it might be. I reckon EJ is more than money. It'll be next year for sure. We're back next week. So actually, you do all of that. You lead us out, so you tell the world what's happening.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for watching. Obviously, getting involved with the comments. Love to see it. Next week, we might have Neil with us. We'll be around 7:15, 7:20. It's the last race before the summer break as well, the Hungarian Grand Prix. So hopefully, we'll be talking about a Charles Leclerc redemption weekend.
Hopefully.
And trying to claw himself back into that championship fight.
Metal Jace, Hungarian circuit used to be always to be a dust bowl to add to the overtaking problem.
It's been an old circuit, the Hungarian.
Yeah. Charles Leclerc, 75 points. That's an awful lot of points.
64 behind. He's dropped 75. How different could this championship calendar or this championship look?
See you next week.